The Colosseum stands today as a monument of marvel, of human ingenuity, and yet beneath its stones lies a history soaked in blood, terror, and sacrifice. The crowd gathers, but not for laughter, not for joy. They gather for spectacle, for the thrill of life extinguishing before their eyes. 50,000 voices merge into one, a roar of anticipation, of demand. The sand, already darkened by countless battles, waits beneath the sun, a silent witness to lives that will end before their time. At the center of the arena, a man kneels. His armor clinks softly, mingling with the whispers of those who came before him. He is neither hero nor legend. He is waiting for the hand of an emperor, for the signal that will determine whether he lives another day or dies here, forgotten. Because in ancient Rome, gladiators were never meant to survive. They were sacrifices. History paints gladiators as champions, men of honor who fought for fame. But history lies in the shadows. Rome built the Colosseum not for glory. It was a theater of control, a machine designed to teach fear. Gladiators were not chosen for courage. They were chosen for circumstance. Prisoners of war, slaves, criminals, men condemned by power. Their lives were not their own. Their pain belonged to the empire. Their deaths belonged to the gods. Most gladiators never volunteered. Captured in foreign lands, sold like cattle, stripped of their identities, their names erased, their pasts forgotten. They entered training schools that would shape them into instruments of suffering. Each step forward took them further from freedom. The schools demanded obedience, endurance, and submission. Pain was cultivated. Hunger was measured. Fatigue was endless. Hope was a dangerous companion. It could make them hesitate, and hesitation could cost their lives. Training was brutal, unrelenting. Broken bones were healed to break them again. Muscles were built not for survival, but for the spectacle of pain. Every scar became part of the performance. Every scream increased value. The gladiators were fed and disciplined, not to save lives, but to prolong suffering. Rome wanted drama, not mercy. Every fight was meticulously prepared to maximize fear and awe. Before stepping into the arena, every gladiator swore an oath, not to fight with honor, not to survive, but to endure. Chains, fire, beatings, death by the sword. It was literal, not symbolic. This oath stripped them of humanity, leaving obedience in its place. Their bodies belonged to the empire. Their pain belonged to the spectators. Their deaths belonged to the gods. Beneath the Colosseum, in the Hippodrome, darkness reigned. It was a labyrinth of fear, a place where the waiting was as torturous as death itself. The gladiators listened to the crowd above, laughter, cheers, cries demanding blood. Nearby, lions, leopards, and bears paced in cages, trapped alongside the men. Both men and beasts were instruments of entertainment, both destined to kill or die. Wooden elevators lifted them together. As the platforms rose, so did terror. Some prayed. Some stared blankly, already dead in their minds. Relief came not because survival was likely, but because the waiting had ended. Blood had power. Rome believed it purified cities, strengthened the empire, and pleased the gods. Every drop spilled on the sand was sacred. Some spectators collected sweat or blood as medicine. Others believed that touching it brought fertility or luck. The arena was a temple, and the gladiators were offerings. Death was not accidental. It was intentional, ritualized, celebrated. A gladiator falls. He does not look at his opponent. He looks at the crowd. His life is no longer his own. If the spectators demand mercy, he might survive. If they turn away, he will die. The emperor watches. One gesture ends everything. Not because the man fought poorly, but because Rome demanded balance. Stories of mercy are myths. Death was efficient, cheap to replace, valuable to the empire. Not all in the arena were trained fighters. Some were criminals, rebels, political prisoners. Unarmed, they were thrown to wild animals, burned alive, executed slowly before thousands. Their deaths were entertainment, their suffering, ritual. Their purpose was warning. This is what happens when absolute power governs. Imagine standing there, feeling the sun on your skin, smelling sweat and blood, hearing screams echo in your chest. Would you cheer? Would you look away? Or would you convince yourself it was necessary? Rome's power was built not just on conquest, but on teaching its people to enjoy cruelty. And cruelty, once normalized, perpetuates itself. Some gladiators became famous, their faces painted on walls, their names whispered in taverns. But fame offered no protection. A celebrated death drew more attention, more blood, more profit. Even champions were expendable. The final walk was always the same: darkness into blinding light, silence into thunder, bare feet on sand, eyes scanning the crowd. Some prayed, some cried, some smiled, pretending courage could alter fate. It never did. Rome always won. After the fight, bodies were dragged away, stripped, discarded. No funeral, no gravestones. Most gladiators vanished as Rome intended, unseen, unnamed, unremembered. Yet their fear lingers. Every scream carried not hope, but certainty. The certainty of erasure. Rome did not merely kill men, it erased them. That is why the Colosseum, even in silence, feels heavy today. The arena was more than sand and stone. It was a mirror of Rome itself. Every cheer, every shout, every drop of blood reflected the empire's hunger for power. Even in victory, there was no peace. Surviving meant waiting. Waiting for the next performance, the next battle. Pain and courage became currency. Fear became instinct. Humanity became optional. In the shadows, whispers of defiance stirred. Small sparks of rebellion. Even in chains, men dreamed of freedom. Every glance toward the rising platforms tested body and mind. Every step toward the gates was a challenge to fate. And still, the crowd learned to measure bravery by suffering. They learned to celebrate death as entertainment. Rome trained an empire to see pain as normal and obedience as divine. Today, tourists walk through the Colosseum. They smile. They take photographs. Few hear the echoes. Few remember the sacrifices. Few know that the Colosseum was not a monument to entertainment, but to power, control, and the normalization of cruelty. Gladiators were not heroes. They were offerings, almost erased by history. Next time you hear the word gladiator, do not imagine glory. Imagine fear. Imagine waiting. Imagine standing in the sand, knowing your life is not yours, and that every scream echoes through eternity. Because Rome's greatest empire was not built on triumph or honor. It was built on forgotten deaths. And perhaps that is its most enduring lesson. Power survives only when humanity is silenced.